Hello, and welcome back to Journey Through the Pen. I appreciate you joining me today. Today we're going to talk about why prison reform should matter to you, even if you think it doesn't affect you. So, a lot of people say, well, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right? I used to think that way too, because I didn't know what was going on. And prison is necessary for punishment for certain crimes. You should be punished. However, you should not necessarily be abused. You should not lose your dignity and your humanity, which a lot of times is what happens inside of our prison systems. So let's talk about why prison reform should matter to you, even if you think it doesn't directly affect you. First of all is public safety, right? So most of these men and women who are in prison will come home one day, or they'll be released one day. So would we rather that they come home better or worse? Because the way that the prison system currently works, a lot of them are coming out either unchanged or worse than they were when they went in. They're being abused, they're being neglected medically, they're being neglected a lot of times. It's just a horrible situation that most of these people are going through. So the point of prison is punishment, obviously, right? But the punishment part should be that you lose your basic freedoms. You can't go where you want to go. You can't see your family when you want to. You can't eat what you want to. You miss funerals, weddings, babies being born. You go through divorces. You lose your basic freedoms, but you should not lose your basic human rights, which is what happens a lot of the time. So when these men and women come back into our communities, would we rather that they come back out with new life skills, new job skills, some sort of education that they didn't have before? Maybe they've had their addiction treated instead of fed. So would we want them to come out and be a good neighbor, a productive neighbor, a successful neighbor? Or do we want them coming out being homeless on the street, no job and no support and no education and no way to get a job because they didn't learn any new job skills and they didn't get their addiction treated? And do we want them to repeat the cycle and put your communities in danger? Or do we want them to come out better? So it does affect you. It affects your neighborhood, it affects your community, it affects, it affects your kids, it affects everything. It really does. And the other way it affects you that you may not think about is your tax dollars, right? We all pay taxes, and in Florida, the prisons are the largest run state agency in Florida. The budget is over $2 billion, like $2.7 billion. And that's money is being spent warehousing people. It's not being spent rehabilitating people. And there's a huge difference. My husband today sat around and did nothing. He read a book. He watched a movie. He talked to some people, played some cards. And that's a pretty typical day, right? They don't have programming for him to go to. They've cut that out of the budget. So it's very frustrating that our tax dollars are being spent just to warehouse them. What is the point of that? What can anybody possibly get out of sitting around most of your day doing nothing? It doesn't make any sense. Why are we paying for that? Where's the money going? So it's things that we need to start thinking about as a society and as a state. $2.7 billion is a lot to not provide rehabilitation. So what are they doing with the money? So it's just something else that you need to kind of think about. And the third thing that I would like to mention today is if it doesn't affect you right now, it could one day. It could be you. Now I know you're going to say, no way in hell it will ever be me. My kids are good kids. I'm a good person. I don't do anything illegal. That's fine. That's fine, because I used to think the same way. So it's totally fine. I get where you're coming from. But let me ask you this, okay? Do you know anybody who battles with an addiction? Do you know anybody that has a mental health issue? Have you or anybody that you know ever gone out and had one too many drinks, but you drove home anyway and it was fine? You made it home fine, right? What about the people that don't? So I know you think that this is never going to be you, because believe me, I thought that this would never be me. And I really pray that it's never you, because this is the most horrible experience that you or your family will go through. One of the most horrible anyway. It's got to be up there in the top 3. So I know that you think it's not going to be you, but it could be one day. It could be your neighbor. It could be your coworker. But it's going to affect you one way or another. Did you know, I read the other day that 1 out of every 33 children have either a parent or a family member in prison. That's a terrible number. We should not be happy with that. And in Florida, 1 out of every 3 or 4 that are released from prison end up back in prison within 5 years. That's a terrible number. We are not helping these men and women become the people that God made them to be. We're not giving them a second chance. We're not giving them education. We're not giving them life skills. Some of these people don't know how to budget money. They don't know how to get a job. They don't know. And if we don't teach them, then the cycle is going to just continue. And they're going to get out. They're going to re-offend. And they're going to go right back in. And then our tax dollars are again going to be warehousing them to just sit there and do nothing. So it's very frustrating. It's a very frustrating situation, but it could affect you one day. And it does affect you now, whether you see it or not. It does, with your tax dollars, with your communities, the homeless guy on the street. Do you ever think about how he ended up there? Why is he there? I mean, there could be a million reasons, but this is definitely one of the reasons that it could be. We need to lower the population of the prisons so that we can have programming, so that we can start rehabilitating people. That's a video for another time, I suppose. But we need to get more involved. We need to let our legislators know that what's happening is not acceptable. We've been quiet for a very long time, and silence is a form of acceptance. And there's very little that's happening in our prisons that should be considered acceptable. Very little. So I encourage you to continue to follow me and my journey through the pen. And even if you think it doesn't affect you, I appreciate you taking time to see a different point of view, or maybe learn something that you don't know. It's always good to learn things about what's going on in the world. So my next video is going to be more geared toward families who have a loved one in prison or have someone who is getting ready to go into prison. And we're going to talk about reception centers and what those are. We're going to talk about how to set up phones, JPay, and how to find support. It's really important for you to find support on this journey. So I encourage you to check out my blog, journeythroughthepen.com, excuse me, and just subscribe to follow me. And I would love to see you next time. Thank you.